Hello and welcome to Soulful Valley, Tracy.
Hi, morning, Katie. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You're so welcome. And Tracy is another one of our authors in the book Evolving on Purpose, Mindful Ancestors Paving the Way for Future Generations, which we are launching on Friday at 9 a.m. We're less than 3 days away now, Tracy. How do you feel about that?
Excited. I think I do a lot of avoiding. And then when there's a degree of inevitability in a positive way, I can go with it. But up until that point, it's like I can't hide. I put it in writing and I'm okay with that, actually. I'm really okay with that. If it helps somebody or makes someone laugh and cry, that's great.
It is, it's awesome. And we can connect with people on a deeper level than they can perhaps see on our social media, or because I feel I know you even more now because I've read your chapter. So we already had a connection, Tracy and I, because when I wrote in Intuitive Knowing Her Truth, Tracy's sister was one of the authors in Intuitive Knowing Her Truth. And I've been around you, Tracy, in some of Joanna Hunter's groups as well. So
that's right.
Sort of built a bit of a relationship before this has happened. I was so grateful when you came into this book, because for me as well, I've had issues with chronic pain for several years now. So I want to know more about you and your work and what you do. I'm very keen to find out, and I know that you're just going to be somebody that's going to help a lot of people. So can you share?
I hope so.
You absolutely are. And can you share with our audience a little bit about Tracy and your chapter?
Okay, so I actually wrote one chapter and then rescinded it. It was just too personal. It was about my life story, which maybe I will write one day, or maybe it was just so therapeutic seeing it in black and white. So I pulled that away and thought, actually, why don't I write about another aspect of my life? So I'm a chartered physiotherapist, and I have used complementary medicine in my practice for forever. I just kind of breathed and weaved it in, and I got a lot of hate for that. And so I tried to hide that aspect. But yet each person, there's a light in them. There's a goodness in them. They want to be cared for. And I guess I've sort of imbued that. And I've been doing a master's. So I kind of wrote about my journey. I hope I'm answering the question here, Katie. I've written a little bit about why I thought the way I did, in the way I did my physio practice. And I worked for other people, and then it just got a bit intolerable. So I opened my own practice, and I've just been delving deeper, really. And the master's was kind of a real massive switch in looking at the theory behind some of these spiritual practices. And the clincher for me was that every communication in your body takes place via an electrical spark of activity called the action potential. And it just sort of came to me, look, scientists have been working on this for a long time, as have spiritual practices. It's the same thing. But what I liked was that if it's a charge or it's an electricity, we can measure it. And we also know what happens in the disease state, how it changes, or the chronic pain state. So if we can measure it when it's healthy and when it's not, then the next step is, well, there must be something out there that bridges that gap without all the side effects of pharmacology. The many side effects.
Yeah, well, I've been down that route and definitely ended up stopping them all because it can be okay for some people, but
chronic pain has its roots in trauma.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a physical trauma, a mental trauma, and emotional trauma, it has its roots in trauma. And it gets to the point where the brain no longer has a positive effect effect on the pain state, your brain or your emotional sensors, if you like, and your survival sensors go into overdrive, and so you actually create more pain chemical that's pumped out through your body, and this tends to be triggered by the brain's perception of something dangerous out there. So it's an overprotective function. The base unit, your electrical energy, gets disrupted from the get-go. So I just wanted to somehow bring those two together. So I think there are two aspects. You can do something, or I use something called frequency specific microcurrent. So that helps to normalize or rebalance the electrical unit side. So that works on the physiology. And then there's the other side where you've got to do brain training, desensitizing, calming the limbic system and structure. Well, that's meditation, that's spiritual practices, that's mindfulness. There's masses of literature out there on how much mindfulness helps with the control of chronic pain, and it is about bridging that gap, making it accessible for patients. Do stop me, I could talk all day.
No, carry on, because obviously it's quite a subject I'm passionate about as well. And I was actually a mindfulness teacher when my body started to deteriorate. So I was witnessing I could see what was going on, but it was on such a deep subconscious level. So my conscious mind had changed the way I thought about things. I thought I'd let things go, but later on I would find, when I studied EFT, that my body was responding very differently to my conscious mind. So it's a very, very deep trauma. It's so deep. And when you've had a traumatic childhood, and then things show up in your adult life, that this is why relationships don't work. Of course they will. And obviously we never feel safe, do we? Because if we weren't safe, and we've seen this with the reaction in the world with the pandemic, really, if we don't feel safe with our carers, our caregivers, then how can we feel safe with a government? Or, how can we trust anybody, basically? So it's very, very relevant, very important. So talk on.
Once I get started, I guess I've been working as a physiotherapist on and off for 33 years, and healing and body work and touch. So there's been a big split within physiotherapy. I think physiotherapy is my vehicle, and my way in to have a foundation, have a basis, have a place that I start from. But I would say I definitely move forward. So I would say you've got the base unit, like I said, the electrical, then you have the whole brain retraining and desensitizing, which is a huge commitment on patients' part. And I think the medical model doesn't allow for that. It doesn't really know how to. And there's not enough people doing it. So I think that's where you can weave in the spiritual aspect, and the physiological changes that can take place in the cells, and one affects the other. Of course, we know this. So in my book chapter, I don't give a lot of sciencey details, because I think that can just overwhelm people. So I've sort of planted the seed, if you like, but it spurred me on. I've got a collab set up with a wonderful woman in Sweden, which I won't talk about yet because we haven't finalized the details. And it's kind of just opened the gateway for me to do what I came here to do. And I think that's a huge blessing, and I have to thank you for that, because if I didn't, I think I'd still be hiding, and I'd still not really say it in those very specific ways. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. I hope that I can, the whole purpose for me has always been to help people on their journey. That is, I am of service. I serve And that's fine and dandy with me.
And I'm grateful that you took that opportunity in the book, because I did keep coming back for you. I did keep coming back to nudge you, didn't I? I knew you were supposed to be in this book.
You were very loving, but very persistent.
I knew you were hiding. I knew this was for you. And I knew you wanted it as well. But the timing, I don't think, was right. And of course, the timing changed with the book, because obviously we couldn't put the book out there until we filled it with authors. So the deadlines kept on changing. And it was similar for my first book, because I said no first. So I also know when people say no, they don't always mean it. It just isn't the right time. So I'm grateful that you came in eventually.
Yeah, I think it's paving the way for lots of fun stuff. And I love what I do. I absolutely love it. And I hope that, yeah, I'm absolutely really keen on writing another book. I can't believe it.
Have you wanted to write in the past? Have you always wanted to write? Is it something that's been niggling at you that you should write, or is that recent?
No, I don't know. Maybe it has. I've always kept a journal. I've always kept kind of diaries, because I've did a lot of traveling and lived overseas. So I guess, I don't know, I've had such wild adventures. Sometimes you can't believe that you actually did it or went through it. So, and also I'm really ordinary. I'm first generation of immigrant parents. So I'm an ordinary girl. I went to a comprehensive. I'm very average, but in one sense, no one's average. We all have something.
We've all got our gifts, haven't we? And we're all, I went to a comprehensive. I lived on one of the most difficult council estates in a city in Coventry. I come from a really difficult background, and somewhere that when I was young, and I had incredible opportunities that were out of this world for somebody that lived in the position I lived in. And then it was,
you can't handle it, can you? Well, I couldn't.
It's like there's two different worlds, and so you've got your foot in the one world that you've got your family and your roots in, and then you've got your foot in this other world that exists that you didn't. It's out of reach normally, isn't it? To people like us, shall we say, the normal, ordinary girl. And then you've got everybody else's views around that. But there is so much normality in that other world as well that we put on a pedestal that we think is out of our reach.
Absolutely. I mean, I had such a hang up about not going to grammar school. I've only just recently let go of that. So what? I've only got my dissertation to write up, which is a given. Once you've done your 8 modules in your masters, it's been a long slog, and I've had many moments where I've wanted to put it down. But actually, the emotional growth that came with that was really what it was for, I think. Just go, oh, there's a part of me that does belong to that world. Because, yeah, like you say, there's these two worlds. You don't feel like you belong. Your roots pull you back. I remember my aunts, love them. They were really closer in age to being sisters. And they were really worried when I went to physiotherapy college / uni. They were like, oh, she's going to change. Because I was the first person to be educated on the next level. And then my nan was totally up for it. She was like, great. And they said, Tracy is always going to be the same Tracy. She's always going to giggle at her own daftness. She's always going to be loving and giving and kind. She's never going to, that's who she is. And so, but yeah, they did struggle a little bit. They didn't know what to say to me, or like, my nan was like, give her a hug and say, hi, how's it going, kind of thing. She was pretty cool.
I smiled when you said your nan then, because my nan was the one that was there rooting for me. She was the one that after I'd been acting as a teenager, it was easy then because there was funding in place, there was support, there was all sorts of things there for me. But when I became an adult, that was gone. and we were a family with no money. But my nan, she didn't drive, but she would get on a bus with me to get me to auditions, to make sure that I still went for these opportunities. She was just so amazing. And I know this woman, my nan, has been supporting me in spirit ever since she left us. And I've had an even bigger experience of evidence about that when a few days ago I decided to move back our solo author project to 2022. And I was thinking, you know, probably around the time that we launched the next book. But I realised that on the 11th of February 2022 is my nan's 100th birthday.
Yeah, it's funny, those times and dates and numbers, they actually, and look, we're doing this, and isn't it, I mean, I'm not massively into the moon and all of that, but I am in some ways, because we are in Bali. When I lived there, everything is governed by the lunar calendar, and guess what, we're launching with a super moon.
It's a full moon in Aries.
Pluto squaring Mars.
Yeah, we've got all sorts going on, haven't we? And for me, it's like a spiritual weekend, because it's the weekend my nan passed on the 24th of October. I had exactly the same thing where my podcast launched on the 25th of October last year. The same weekend. So much evidence of that connection. Tracy, if people want to delve deeper with you on the work that you do, once they've read your chapter, where can they come and find you, or once they've listened to this podcast?
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm got a website. I'm probably going to start, well, not probably, I will be being a bit more visible and opening all my channels for doing this work instead of closing them off. Is that what you meant? So I'll be doing a free masterclass, definitely, and I'll set a date in November.
Awesome. If you can just tell us the name of your website. What's your...
physiokinesis.co.uk. I'm playing around with a name change called Be Well Physio. Be Well awesome. Physio. So but yeah, physiokinesis. Physio meaning natural, normal, kinesis, kinetic, movement, energy. So I like that as well. So we'll see.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you want to share while you're here today?
But all of those people who are struggling with trauma, whether it manifests mentally, emotionally, physically, just trust somewhere in you has the answers, and somewhere in you, if you ask those questions, you will be led to someone that can help you. I'm not the only person, but I would say that we have been disempowered, I feel, on some levels, on quite a few levels, and you have to go within you and ask the questions. What can I do? How can I help towards this? And instead of outwardly, I want a pill, what are you going to do, demanding in that out level, actually go within, because some of the answers you have yourself. And I ask all my clients with complex history to do this, is to write me a timeline. And they're like, what do you want that for? They don't all say it like that, but and then you start to see this pattern of trauma, like I say, big life events, big traumas, and you start to see their physiology and their patterns, both mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and that can really be an eye-opener. So I would say, in short, trust yourself, do some meditation and breathing, maybe even some really light yoga, and go within, notice what's happening to parts of your body, because breath is everything. And do you know what? Love yourself. Somewhere you're not loving yourself enough, and you are betraying your own boundaries, and you are angry, or you're expecting answers from other people that actually you could answer yourself. I hope that was helpful.
It absolutely is, and that your body is often screaming at you because it doesn't resonate with whatever it is that you're doing. And I've certainly witnessed that. Absolutely, yeah. Well, I know that a lot of my issues started with the gut because I was diagnosed with IBS in my 20s, early 20s. So for 30 years, that was hovering around.
And IBS is like a dustbin. It doesn't really mean anything, but it lets, you know, the system that really gets battered with stress is the digestion. And I would say in the West, it's the thing we take the least notice of until, you know, we just
until it causes us
we don't
problems.
talk about gas and poop and all that kind of stuff. Whereas actually it's key to health. And maybe that comes in my next chapter. And actually, Western doctors have written about this. So it's not just an Eastern philosophy. Western doctors have written about this. But again, health news, it's not about what we can do for ourselves. It's always about pointing us to looking outward. The answers are all there. We just have to ask questions. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming in today, Tracy.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you. I've loved it. As I said, once you get me to open my gob, I will just talk. I hope I haven't talked at you too much. I hope that was useful for some people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And keep on talking, keep on sharing. We need this kind of wisdom.
And I'd be happy to do a podcast on chronic pain and a little deeper into that process.
Well, we'll do an episode just about
a worksheet to go with it.
Beautiful.
If that's helpful.
Thank you. Yes, very. We'd
love
that.
To.
Especially when we're coming from a spiritually connected with that as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Okay, bye. Thank you.